so this is House District 64 race. We have Mr. Andy Hopper, who drew number 1, and Representative Stucky, who drew as number 2. So take it away.
Hey y'all, I'm Andy Hopper, and I'm running to be your representative for Texas House District 64. I'm joined here with my beautiful wife, Amanda, 24 years. You know, it's funny, we actually lived half of our marriage in Denton and another half in Wise County, and we raised 3 outstanding conservative warriors in Wise County.
That's right.
I'm a software engineer, I'm a warrant officer in the Texas State Guard, and we co-founded Wise County Conservatives, which has turned out to be one of the most successful grassroots organizations in rural Texas.
That's right.
I'm running for Texas House because I am sick of our elected representatives going down to Austin session after session, only in return having passed a few token priorities. We are in the midst of a full-scale invasion of our southern border. The federal government is 100% complacent in this entire affair, but make no mistake, our Texas legislature has done nothing but encourage theater on the border. At the same time, thousands of Texans have lost their jobs due to medical mandates, and our legislators have again done nothing. Our rights in Texas are slipping away. We expected our Texas representatives to be able to stand up for our liberty and stand up for our freedom, and instead, in our hour of need, they abandoned their post. After 4 sessions, we have yet to see any sort of fix for a near complete grid failure. Our children are still being indoctrinated in our schools, even as our conservatives are being purged from our military. Our history is being erased as our monuments are being removed. And parents are still allowed to engage their children into chemical or surgical castration. It's ridiculous. We need strong conservatives that will stand up to the lobbyist-funded establishment in Austin. Folks, this is our time. I believe we have been put in this place for such a time as this. I believe that it is our job to stand for Texas. I pray that you'll stand with me.
Yes, I'm Lynn Stucky. I am the current District 64 rep. This is my 3rd term. I did louder. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Okay. We're blessed to be here tonight and honored to represent the great people in District 64. My wife and I showed up in Denton County in 1983 with nothing more than a folder full of student loans, and she told me I married her because of her money, because she had $2,000 in the bank and a very used piano. But we were blessed to raise our children here in Denton County and to watch, do something that we really enjoyed in veterinary medicine, and she taught. And we watched our children grow up, and we want to make sure that they have the same opportunities that we had. I've been here there 3 sessions, and yes, we have gotten things done. In my first session, I had the highest passage rate of anybody in the House. In my second session, I had the highest passage of anybody in the House. And in the 3rd one, we had a lot of things going on, including a pandemic and Winter Storm Uri. So a lot of things changed there. There are a lot of things that we are doing and a lot of things that we're going to continue to do. The CRT is no longer something that is allowed in school, and we passed 2 bills to fight that. I've been a 15-year former school board member. I was on the Chamber of Commerce for 10 years. My wife and I helped start Denton Young Life. I'm on the board of directors of Kennecott Institute. I appreciate the opportunity to represent you, and I'm honored. I will represent from the viewpoint of a small business owner, a property owner, somebody who has given back for 39 years to the community. Thank you for being here.
Okay, so are you a supporter of term limits, or why not?
And I support term limits. I heard some guy here earlier that was 69, he said, you know, he didn't really need them, and I probably don't either because I'm not that far behind him. But term limits I could see would be good, but it would have to be somewhere around 20 years. You truly can get a lot more done in your 3rd or 4th session than you can your 1st session. And I know that for a fact. I'll be blessed to go back. If I do, I will get a lot of things done for District 64. And our district is new, obviously, because Andy is part of the district. I used to be just part of Denton County, and now we also include all of Wise County. I'm a rural guy. I know how Denton County was a lot like Wise County is today when I got here in 1983, where we had about 140,000 people, and now we have almost 1 million people.
Mr. Hopper, same question to you, sir.
I absolutely support term limits, and I think it should be fairly low. I think 2 to 3 sessions, and you need to go home and spend some time with your family, because I think that when you're down in Austin, you turn into a swamp preacher. And as far as what has actually been done in this past session, that we were so productive, I mean, one of the few bills that my opponent actually authored was to require you to wear a life vest at all times while you're on a vote. At the same time, he voted to add 2 Muslim holidays to our state calendar. He voted to make Missouri City the hip-hop capital of Texas. And he voted for a health equity program, voted to allow Texas schools to raise revenue through bonds that are passed on to their students. He voted against limiting the ability of those same universities of not capping their tuition increases per Matt Schaefer's great amendment. So we did not actually get a lot of good conservative legislation through the legislature, and I disagree that last session was a great success for Lynn Stucky.
There you go.
We'll go back to Mr. Hopper. Second question will go to Mr. Hopper first, and then Dr. Stucky. Where do you stand on the COVID lockdowns, and would you have called for a special session?
Yeah, so the COVID lockdowns violated the Constitution in at least 4 different ways. Article 1, Section 17 of the Texas Constitution states that taking the property for public use is a violation. It's actually considered eminent domain, and businesses are required to be compensated for any damages taken by that. In fact, half of the 1975 Disaster Act talks about compensating businesses. The Texas Constitution also says that closing the courts shall always remain open, it says, and yet the courts were closed for a year. Texas Constitution also says the beaches should remain open. Texas Constitution is clear that your right to worship is inviolate, and yet churches were closed, and that was facilitated by Greg Abbott. There is no doubt that the Bill of Rights cannot be overstepped, especially in the time of emergencies. So no, the very first thing that the governor should have done is call the legislature into a special session. The very first thing my opponent should have done on day 3 was vote to review Abbott's emergency declarations, which he voted not to review.
Sure. Where do you stand on the COVID lockdowns, and would you call for a special session, I'm assuming on that topic, on the COVID lockdowns?
Okay. On the special session for COVID lockdown, after the 3rd special session or after our general session? I'm not sure what the question is.
It just says where do you stand on the COVID lockdowns, and would you call for
It's a gross overreach of the federal government to have any kind of mandates like the lockdowns that we had. And if we're talking about a special session after the 3 special sessions that we had, that special session would cost the taxpayers a minimum of $1 million for a special session. And other states have passed other legislation against the same stuff, and yet the federal government overreached over them and kept doing it. So the best way that we could fight back was through the judicial system. And that's why we went that route. And if you all know, last week, the Supreme Court overruled some of that stuff. And so rather than spend $1 million of taxpayer money that would have done nothing to change, we went through the judicial system, and we're going to continue to fight that. It is an overreach, and I will do everything I can in my power to make sure it doesn't happen.
Okay, question number 3 will go to you first, Dr. Stucky. What is the budget for the state of Texas, and how much of that goes to public schools?
$240 billion is our budget, and we only do a balanced budget every 2 years. We're not like the federal government, we can just print money. And almost 46% of that is going to the education. We have a constitutional mandate to provide quality education for every student in this state. So to take the money away from public education is not the way that we fix school choice. The reality on the cost and how we can be more efficient, there's always more efficiency that can be done in government. Property tax, and that's a big item that I think we're going to work on, and we're going to get improvement on that, just like we did this last time. We'll continue to work on reducing property tax in the next upcoming session.
Okay, Mr. Hopper, same question?
As my opponent said, there is a significant amount of money that goes from the state to the local ISDs for public education. In addition, our property tax, basically 53% on average, goes to public education, 45% of which goes to the M&O portion. So it's a significant portion of the amount of money that you put into the state of Texas that goes into public schools. And public schools need to be funded, but the best way to get quality public education is to have reasonable choices available to parents, because the best way to test schools, the best way to determine whether or not they're successful, is to see if the classes are full or empty. Because if parents have a choice and the school's failing, they're not going to put their kids in that school. Competition has always worked. It's an American principle, and we should do everything that we can to make sure that we have actual competition in schools, because it's going to raise all boats.
Okay. So you'll give us your concluding remarks, Mr. Harper.
So tonight you've heard an interesting contrast between two very different candidates. On one hand, my opponent is a moderate, lobbyist-funded representative that is actually now put at the top of his list of endorsements. Greg Abbott, who interestingly enough has actually been censured by both Denton and Wise County's executive committee. At the same time, you have an opponent, his opponent, myself, who is actually a Texas Guardsman, a conservative outsider who is endorsed by former RPT chair Colonel Allen West. In fact, I believe that we are at a crossroads where we have an opportunity for the state of Texas to stand up and stop letting Florida lead and allow Texas to be the leader.
Amen.
This is our destiny, y'all, and I believe that we are put in this time and place. And I ask you to please stand with me and stand with the growing army of conservatives across the state that are challenging the lobbyist-funded establishment. My website is Hopper for Texas. Thank you very much.
Way to go, Andy.
It is a major contrast between the two of us. And we had the most conservative legislative session ever recorded, with the heartbeat bill, where we made sure that if there was even a beat of a heart, that you cannot have an abortion. With constitutional carry, never happened before. With election integrity laws passed, and many other conservative bills. And that's why 2 weeks ago I was named the Texas Conservative Coalition Award for being one of the most conservatives. The reality of what we have here is your definition of conservative. Mine is limited government, common sense legislation with personal liberties and freedoms. And in our legislation being modeled after the basic information before leaving Earth, which is the Bible. That's how I see it. The other side, if you're talking scorecard conservative, has nothing to do with anything other than how many times you vote no. So if you want to be a bomb thrower and vote no on everything, you can be the most conservative person in the legislature. I'm not interested in doing that for $600 a month. I'll stay here and do more vaccinations to animals and look at cows trying to have cats. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'd like to